Mind and its Languages of Reason. Written by and read by William John Cox on December the 14th, 2018. Dedication to those who seek to understand the physical universe and the mind that observes it. Preface. Mass is stupid. In its galactic and atomic manifestations, it mindlessly moves in relationship to all that physically surrounds it. The fate of mass is to simply move, but sometimes, under certain congenial conditions, mass produces life. Then, and only then, under even more unique circumstances, life gives rise to intelligence. Finally, on the most rare occasions, mind evolves from intelligence. It becomes self-aware and contemplates time and all that surrounds it, including mass, energy, life, and its own self. Ultimately, minds learn to identify the galactic structure of the universe, the atomic composition of the elements, and the nature of life that generates intelligence and mind. It is then, when mind becomes sufficiently mature to understand itself and is capable of detecting and predicting the actions and reactions of subatomic mass, it learns that microscopic mass, such as photons and electrons, can exist at more than one place at a given time. Our minds have come to see how these objects can become entangled and affect each other over distances instantaneously without regard to the speed of light. Our minds, through our sensory and measuring devices, consciously observe and thereby create the physical reality of the microscopic world that underlies all of mass, energy, and light. The essence of quantum physics is not that it predicts where an object actually is, but instead it points to where the object probably will be found. The object does not exist, nor is it there, until we seek and find it there. We are now at this place in time. We make full use of the probabilities predicted by quantum physics in our scientific endeavors. However, we do not understand how it is that conscious observation influences the physical reality of the world we inhabit. To liberate ourselves from the enclosed box from which we perceive our universe and all it contains, including ourselves, we must thoughtfully consider the probability of three things and make reasonable assumptions from our conclusions. It is necessary that we recognize the likelihood not only that conscious life exists elsewhere in the universe beyond Earth, but that mind is an eternal and universal phenomenon. Mind is an essential factor whenever we concern ourselves with questions of mass, energy, and light. Without mind, there is neither time nor eternity. Moreover, we must come to accept that our perceivable universe is but a tiny part of an immensely larger whole, as though it were a single drop of water in a mighty whirling hurricane, spreading its energy across a deep, vast, and limitless ocean. Finally, we must imagine that we can pierce the singularity at the core of the infinitely small and glimpse what lies on the other side of nothing. If it is in fact true that mind arises from mass spun in the universes of light as a living expression of life and intelligence, and that mind has been seeking knowledge for all of eternity, then our own local universe has been observed at all times by a living mind. People of faith believe that everything, including ourselves, has been created and manipulated by a powerful God. If, however, mind is a living entity, the accumulated knowledge, wisdom, and creations of the collective intelligence of eternity far exceeds anything conceivable as a matter of religious dogma. Today, scientists who use quantum physics accept that it has worked in every situation in which it has been tested, and most are as puzzled as the rest of us by the influence of mind in their observations. If, however, we are to create machines, such as quantum computers, enabling us to travel beyond our present perceptions, we must expand our consciousness to achieve a better understanding of mind, mass, energy, light, time, and eternity. In these essays, we first consider mind and its language of quantum physics. Then we will acquaint ourselves with other tools and languages our minds have created for measuring and counting things, which may be of some value in determining where we came from, where we are, and where we are going. A collection of essays on mind. Writing in the 4th century before the current era, Aristotle followed his scientific work, physics, with a collection of philosophical writings that became known as metaphysics, after physics, to distinguish it from his work on mathematics and science. Aristotle believed the gods were essentially engaged in self-reflection as they eternally contemplated their own contemplations. The efforts of physicists are devoted to an exploration and understanding of the physical universe and mostly leave questions of metaphysics to the philosophers. Even so, experimental data compels physicists to acknowledge the role of consciousness or free choice in quantum physics. The evidence is that observation not only disturbs the object to be measured, but it actually produces the object itself. Few physicists, however, dare to experiment with the influence of consciousness, although it is one of the stumbling blocks in the race to identify a grand theory that unifies relativity and quantum physics. Physicists are divided into several schools of thought in regards to the metaphysical aspects of quantum physics. The majority follow the Copenhagen interpretation that separates the two elements. The conservatives believe that since quantum physics has been demonstrated to work in every test, one need not be concerned about whether or not microscopic mass has a physical reality before observation. Measurement collapses the waveform, and there was no reality before it was measured. For all practical purposes, the role of mind or conscious observation is irrelevant. It matters not whether a palm tree falling on a desert island in the middle of the ocean creates a wave of sound if there was no one around to hear it. Quantum physics and the brain. One of the most intriguing areas of current research involves the application of quantum physics to determine and understand the actual mechanical processes of the brain. Inasmuch as it is composed of atoms of various elements in a variety of molecular combinations, every atom in the brain necessarily obeys the laws of quantum physics. These laws allow quantum objects, atoms, and their particles to be in two places at once. Objects become entangled when they are in the strange condition of quantum superposition, whereby one object cannot be described independently of the state of the other or others, even at a distance. Thus far, physicists have entangled particles such as photons and electrons and superconducting electric currents. Albert Einstein was suspicious of quantum entanglement. He called it spooky action at a distance. Once two particles become entangled, they can be separated and caused to remotely produce action by its twin particle at a different location. This was demonstrated last year by Chinese physicists in 2017 when they repeatedly beamed one of an entangled pair of photons to a satellite receiver circling above the Earth at distances ranging from 500 to 1,400 kilometers. They were able to prove that the entangled photons continue to share the same existence. An emerging field of study is being referred to as quantum biology or quantum neuroscience. It involves a combining of the biology of the brain with organic chemistry, neuroscience, and quantum and nuclear physics. Some of the evidence being accumulated regarding the effects of quantum physics in living organisms involve the ability of plants to use photosynthesis to convert the energy of sunlight into sugar. In addition, the use of a built-in quantum compass by migratory birds to detect the Earth's magnetic field may be the means by which these birds navigate over long distances. The proposition of quantum effects may account for the numerous reports of levitation and transportation experienced by those who survive near-death experiences. What this means is that if it is true that quantum physics prevail in the brain, its product, our mind, can survive an actual death, as its quantum information cannot be destroyed and must be conserved. The theory also derives support from the revival of full brain function in some individuals whose bodies have stopped functioning for extended periods of time due to extreme cold, such as being submerged in freezing water, even under ice. Some of these studies have advanced a theory that consciousness is the product of quantum mechanics that take place within brain cells. And there have been claims that quantum resonance in these brain microtubules is connected with brain synchronization of consciousness. However, this possibility remains unresolved. Current study also includes the quantum actions of phosphorus atoms within the brain in an attempt to explain the mysterious question of human cognition. It has been speculated that it may be impossible to describe consciousness without using quantum physics, because nothing else can account for all of the features present in conscious self-awareness. If, in fact, classical physics is incapable of describing the complicated ion conductance channels involved in synapses, then the only solution will be in quantum physics. One limitation is that these studies are concentrated within the physical brain. And while it may be true that momentary quantum effects are experienced when the mind accesses the brain as a database or uses the brain to record thoughts and physical experiences, it is possible that the answer to where thinking actually occurs will come from an entirely different approach. Does cognition take place within the brain or outside the brain? A mind reaches out as far as it is capable of altering the future. From a helpless baby's pleading cry to its mother, to the computer command sent to a space probe at the edge of our solar system or even beyond. In our world of smartphones and social media, the minds of most of us now encircle the earth. Our minds are wherever they can make a difference, free-ranging, limited only by the demands of truth. The remaining question is whether the quantum consciousness theory can be fully tested. Until then, we will continue to think about how we think, and in doing so, we will be altering the very quantum processes taking place within our brains, which may allow new creative ideas on the subject and an awareness of the changes that are taking place. Is mind separate from the brain that generates it? The traditional materialist or behavioralist view of human consciousness, reflecting the Newtonian mechanistic era which produced it, sees experience, memories, thinking, and emotions as the actual electrochemical action of the neurons, axons, and dendrites and synapses of the brain cells. Much work has been done with modern imaging equipment, identifying fairly exactly the areas of the brain that accomplish speech, vision, cognition, and memories. The brain's physical system allows for rapid thinking and reactions quickly, how quickly a hand jerks back from a hot stove. But it does not fully account for the way our mind examines and modifies our own personalities and behaviors. Nor does it account for the instantaneous action at a distance that occurs during quantum experiences when a mind observes and creates reality in the world of the very small. The emerging view, best expressed by philosopher David Chalmers, who also trained in physics and mathematics, denies that consciousness can be explained by neurology alone. He postulates that information has both a physical and phenomenal aspect, and that the emergence of experience goes beyond what can be derived from physical theory. Most likely, it is at the moment that intelligence becomes self-aware and contemplates its own self that mind and the brain that generates it separate, but remain entangled in a quantum sense. At that point in evolution, our mind begins to create and participate in the reality of our conscious and physical existence. Think about how, over the millennia, our minds have modified our bodies to respond to the needs of our existence. We have developed our wonderfully clever fingers to use tools, a facile tongue for language, and we have evolved our magnificent physical abilities to run, jump, and swim to adapt to our environment and to survive its hardships. If we can accept that our bodies were molded by our minds, we can also perhaps conclude that our brains themselves evolved in response to the perceived needs of our minds. The changes, including the large frontal lobe of our brain for thinking and our pleasurable feelings of reward at performing acts of kindness, did not arise within any one brain at any one time, but were the harmonious product of our community of minds. Are human minds entangled? It is said that people who have lived together for a long time begin to complete each other's sentences. It may be that close and caring relationships in which partners come to fully trust and respect each other allow for the entanglement of minds. Certainly we can continue to experience the presence of a loved one, hear their voice and laughter, and smell their scent long after they have passed away. It may be that mind as a product of quantum processes continues to exist following the death of the physical body. One's mind may actually live on in the minds of others who remember and experience the thinking and creations of the originator. Documented histories about multiple births, such as twins, are replete with instances of shared thoughts and feelings, although there is no demonstrable physical basis. Let us now take an additional step and think about the nature of mind and whether the collective consciousness of humanity has resulted in a worldwide mind. Certainly, if we rise above the residual behaviors of deception, hatred, and violence resulting from instinctual brainstem reactions, and objectively look down upon our modern human civilization as a whole, as though from a UFO, we will surely see that it is a marvelously collaborative and sharing society. Together, we have spanned the globe and built a powerful and interdependent worldwide network of information, communication, economic productivity, and yes, social harmony. It is true that the wars of humanity consumed 100 million lives in the last century. But hatred can be unlearned, and the sacrifice of children can be ended. The flames on the altar of war can be quenched and replaced with the veneration of truth, reason, and wisdom. Just as we cannot see the remote entanglement of particles in a physical sense, we can't see the mind surrounding the brain that generates it unless it manifests itself in a perceptible creation. Nor can we physically perceive the mental entanglement that connects us with other humans on earth. Certainly, the residual limitations of the brainstem behaviors of deception, hatred, and violence interfere with effective communication. These are latent evolutionary diseases that infect and limit the ability of our minds, individually and collectively, to coexist in peace and to achieve our creative potential. Until we cure ourselves, we will suffer injustice, crime, and war. Does sentient life exist beyond Earth? Questioning whether mind and its effect in quantum physics is a universal phenomenon, including the role of conscious observation at the birth of our universe, one has to wonder if self-aware life exists in other places than here on Earth. If physicists are reluctant to delve into the free choice aspects of quantum physics, most also avoid any mention, discussion, or serious consideration of the possibility of extraterrestrial life. The risk of peer ridicule and fear of a damaged professional reputation suppresses much scientific curiosity. Thinking more as a lawyer, however, than as a scientist, and reviewing the best evidence, we can logically consider whether it is possible for life and mind to arise at locations other than Earth, if intergalactic communications can occur, and if humanity has been and is being observed by extraterrestrial minds and their machines. With the widespread advent of radio in the early 20th century, its inventor, Marconi, and others suggested that radio waves could be used to identify life on Mars. In 1924, when Mars was in close opposition, the U.S. Navy tethered a dirigible 2 miles above the ground and equipped it with a receiver to listen for Martian radio waves. A National Radio Silence Day was observed, during which terrestrial radio transmissions were silenced for 5 minutes each hour. Alien messages were not detected. Modern scientific efforts in a search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI, commenced in 1960 and continue to this day. The most significant projects in the United States occur at the 1,000-foot radio telescope at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico and at Project Phoenix at the nonprofit SETI Institute at Mountain View, California. China has deployed a 1,500-foot radio telescope, which has the detection of interstellar communication signals among its goals. These projects have tuned into thousands of stars. However, to date, no messages have been received. Launched in 2009, the Kepler Space Telescope searched for planets outside our solar system until it ran out of fuel just this year in 2018. Analysis of data from the telescope has revealed that Earth-like planets may exist around every fifth Sun-like star in the Milky Way galaxy. If this is true, there may be as many as 25 billion inhabitable planets just in our galactic neighborhood. More than 2,000 individual exoplanets have been confirmed, with an equal number of candidates under consideration. Many of these exoplanets are Earth-like and orbiting in the habitable zone where liquid water could pool on their surfaces. These findings prove that Earth is not unique in the potential to serve as a nursery for life and ultimately to give rise to intelligence and mind. In collaboration with the European Space Agency and the Canadian Space Agency, the National Aeronautic and Space Administration, NASA, plans to launch the James Webb Space Telescope in 2021. Among its tasks, the Large Infrared Telescope with a 6.5-meter primary mirror will study the formation of solar systems capable of supporting life on planets like Earth. In 1950, physicist Enrico Fermi said that considering the size and age of the universe, many technologically advanced civilizations must exist. Regarding a lack of contact, he thought that either such life is more rare than the evidence indicates, or our own civilization is insufficiently developed to detect it. It is also possible that the distances involved are too great for intergalactic travel, or the other advanced civilizations are not interested in communicating with us. Theoretical physicist and cosmologist Stephen Hawking expressed this concern before his death. One day, we might receive a signal from a planet like this, but we should be wary of answering back. Meeting an advanced civilization could be like Native Americans encountering Columbus. And that didn't turn out so well. Since the advent of the atomic age in 1945, there have been thousands of reported sightings of unidentified flying objects or UFOs all over the world, and hundreds of photographs and movies and videos have been obtained. The United States government investigated many of these reports. However, efforts were primarily devoted to debunking rather than verifying contact. Even so, 1/4 of the reports could not be explained away. If you search the internet for UFO news, you will likely find a report from someplace on Earth almost every day. Inasmuch as the air forces of the United States and other nations exist to defend their people against outside attack, their failure to acknowledge the likelihood of extraterrestrial flying objects and their active concealment of their own defenselessness are understandable. Documented by modern U.S. Navy and Air Force weapons system videos, these fabulous machines exhibit speed and maneuverability that are unachievable by any contemporary terrestrial aircraft. These dynamic properties also exceed the ability of our existing knowledge base to explain. The birth of the universe. Visualize reality. Before our universe came into existence, there is only a limitless, all-encompassing black nothingness enlivened by the constant appearance of pairs of particles and antiparticles which instantly annihilate each other and disappear. Deep within the bottomless depths of this cold, black reservoir of static energy, the equilibrium was momentarily broken about 13.8 billion years ago by a sudden quantum fluctuation physically manifested as a superluminal speck of singularity, disorganizing into a spherical spray of expanding embryonic matter. Following a split second of immense inflation, an incredibly massive spawn of infinitesimal bits of related and charged protomatter were isolated, stabilized, and energized by the negative dark energy. Energized with angular momentum, massless particles were animated with spin. Frictionless and delicately balanced between positive, neutral, and negative charges, these elemental particles were electromagnetically endowed with exceedingly long lives. Matter began to coalesce. Mass was born of energy, and the light of its arrival in the darkness was surely noticed by mind. In a quantum sense, an unremarkable bit of energy became the massive spherical waveform of our universe, existing in the past, the present, the future, and all at the same time. Only with mind is there time to notice the difference, and the insight to see the existence of our universe itself as a continuum from creation to collapse, irrespective of time. In doing so, our individual minds also become a continuum from self-awareness to beyond death, as far and so long as our minds make a difference. The instantaneous introduction of the embryonic matter of our universe may be perceived as a multi-dimensional waveform of related particles being expressed as a spherical expansion of relative mass outward through the dark energy. The three-dimensional waveform may oscillate as the bubble grows larger with each cycle, slowly pulsating outward in every direction through the nullity. The waveform incorporates everything we perceive as our expanding universe, including its dark matter. From our limited perspective, our universe may appear flat, as the curvature of its waveform is so incredibly vast that the horizon may be beyond our perception. The acceleration of expansion will continually increase over time until the ripples of our universe ebb away into infinity. As a basic question of quantum physics, was the presence and observation by mind at the origin of our universe a factor in the reality of our physical existence and achieving awareness? Did mind witness the birth of hot, spinning brilliance into the cold black swaddle of endless, enveloping and clinging dark energy, tugging outward from every direction upon mass from the moment of its creation. Relentlessly, the spin energy of expended mass is drained away by the encompassing net negativity. The discovery of the long-sought elementary particle known as the Higgs boson in 2012 secured the Nobel Prize for Scottish physicist Peter Higgs. It validated his prediction of the existence of an invisible background field that slows the transit of particles that convey forces, such as electromagnetism, giving them the appearance of having weight. The Higgs field is believed to exist throughout the universe, providing mass to particles, such as the negative electron, by way of the neutron Higgs boson. The relationship between the Higgs condensate and dark energy has yet to be determined, and they may turn out to be one and the same. Mind is the lost child of energy, and mass is the lost child of energy, and mind is its fortunate grandchild. Mind survives the decomposition and death of its parent as the spent energy of spin is reinterred in the dark place of eternal rest. Dark energy and its occasional transmutation by quantum alchemy into random universes of light is all there is, has ever been, or will ever be physically. Mind, the quantum child born to learn and raised to create, is attracted to the light of universes where minds congregate to witness the epiphany of self-awareness and its wonderful creations. Mind is the surveyor of the universe, the timekeeper of eternity, and the curator of all creation. Mind endures unfettered within the emptiness of eternity, even after the light and spin of its progenitor mass is reabsorbed into the dark energy from which it was spun. The expansion of our universe over the past 13.8 billion years has been steadily attracted and accelerated by the surrounding dark energy, which represents as much as 70% of the total mass energy of our observable universe. The visible galaxies and their clusters only add up to about 5% of our universe. Strangely, the little bit we can see is being held together by something else we cannot see, the remaining 25% of the invisible dark in mass energy. This mysterious, yet-to-be-identified dark matter envelops all mass, including ourselves, and moves in concert with us through the dark energy. In this limitless realm of timeless, eternal energy, the life of a wayward universe is of little moment, scarcely more than the popping of a bubble in a boiling kettle. Were it not for mind, the light of mass would not be noticed nor missed. As it spins down dispersed, discharged, exhausted, and finally restored to the fathomless black energy. Sooner or later, the electromagnetic ballet must end as each spin reaches the limit of its momentum. Throughout the eternal mind patiently watches the mechanics of mass and quietly listens for the whisper of minds upon its waves. Conversing with the Watchers. If it is true that everything we perceive as reality, whether or not we fully understand it, is observed by mind, we can only wonder if we will ever be able to converse with our watchers. Perhaps our human mind has always been a part of the eternal mind, but has yet to become fluent in the one-word language of reason. truth. The question about contact may not be presently answerable, but it does suggest a solution to another question about why our sentient visitors have not said hello. Although it is probable we have been observed throughout our evolution, could it be that the collective breath, knowledge, and mind of humanity exist as a fragile waveform which would collapse upon outside interference, ensuring the extinction of our species? It is more likely we will continue to be lovingly watched so as to not affect our creativity, which is the essence of mind. We will remain free to evolve or to expire in a natural manner that is the way of mind. Earth is a garden, a nursery, a nest, and a test. It provides all we need to survive until we outgrow the infantile brainstem diseases of deception, hatred, and violence. Or we die off from a starvation of will. To continue our growth to the stage of evolution where minds communicate, we must willingly come together and share the responsibility of ensuring that every child worldwide has equal access to nutrition, healthcare, and education. Without this essential, dynamic boost of collective intellectual vitality, a failure to thrive and fly from our nest is inevitable. Just as the self-awareness of intelligence created mind, the self-awareness of mind creates wisdom. Physicist Freeman Dyson said that God is what mind becomes when it has passed beyond our scale of comprehension. He also thought that it would not be surprising if it should turn out that the origin and destiny of the energy in the universe cannot be completely understood in isolation from the phenomena of life and consciousness. Is mind a factor in the calculus of quantum physics? The calculations of quantum physics have been demonstrated to accurately predict the probabilities involved in the reality of the subatomic world. Mind is not directly factored into these equations. However, its presence and product are inherent in the identification and use of certain fundamental numbers in these calculations and in the creation of the calculus itself. Equations that calculate classical relativity and the probabilities of quantum physics often make use of the number pi, 3.14159, etc., as being representative of randomness. For example, Einstein's field equation for gravity includes 8 times pi divided by the speed of light to the 4th power, and pi appears spontaneously in quantum formula comparing the energy states of the hydrogen atom. Designated as c for celeritas, Latin for speed, the speed of light has been measured at approximately 186,000 miles or 300,000 kilometers per second. The 4th power of the speed of light, noted by Einstein, is 243 followed by 27 zeros kilometers per second, a gigantic number. And could this be the speed of mind and quantum entanglement? The golden ratio, or phi, P-H-I, 1.6180, etc., it appears in the nanoscale symmetry found hidden in the solid-state matter. Models of quantum physics are increasingly revealing pi as a harmonious marker of time. Written as E, 2.718281828 is the natural logarithm used in physical sciences, such as solving the differential equations involved in the rate of decay of radioactive substances, and in probability theory. E also serves as a natural limit on calculating mathematical increases, such as the compounding of interest. Another fundamental number, H, is known as Planck's constant, or 6626 separated from the decimal point by 34 zeros. In other words, 0.34006626 is H. This infinitesimally tiny number is related to the quantization of light and matter in that the energy of a photon is equal to H times its frequency. Also called Planck's wall, H marks the point where nothing smaller can be presently calculated. When millions of electrons in a superconductive strange metal achieve what is called a maximally scrambled quantum state, an even tinier number appears. This almost invisible working number is known as H bar, which is H divided by 2 pi. And this equals 1.054 times 10 to the negative 27th. And it represents the smallest possible physical action, defined as any measure of energy multiplied simply by its time. And it is also a limit on the amount and accuracy of certainty that is possible in our physical sphere, given our present understanding. Last but not least, the imaginary number I is used to designate the square root of -1, which is difficult, if not impossible, to determine mathematically. Conceived in the brilliant mind of Leonard Euler, for whom E is named, in the 18th century, and including 5 fundamental mathematical constants, E to the I pi power plus 1 equals 0. It is one of the most elegant equations in all of mathematics. These numbers exist in the natural order of our universe and probably beyond. They were each identified and found to be useful by individual human minds and minds working in concert. The calculus itself was created or discovered by multiple minds, and thus mind is essentially integrated into all mathematical calculations regarding the universe we occupy and in our discovery of what lies beyond. Mathematics is a tool and language designed and created by mind for the purpose of determining and revealing truths. One of the questions about the existence of multiple universes asked by physicists is whether others are governed by the same laws of physics as ours. We will never know the answer to that question, for sure, until we achieve the ability to observe other universes and to penetrate the dimensions of their physical existence. Only 100 years ago, scientists believed that our Milky Way galaxy composed the entire universe. Just as we learned that the Earth circles the Sun, that the Sun circles the galactic center, and that our galaxy moves in relation to a galaxy cluster, we may learn in the future that our universe itself moves relative to something else within the dark energy. For now, an assumption that other universes will be governed by the same laws of physics and constant numbers as ours seems most plausible. Think about this. The speed of light may only be a limitation within universes of light, in the dark. Beyond the light of universes, where there is no movement to be measured nor clocks to tick, even the fourth power of light may be irrelevant, except, perhaps, when a universe of light suddenly appears from nowhere and the real speed of light is reduced to its fourth square root to a accommodate the dimensions of space and time we observe. For mind, which is and has been everywhere, forever, there are no limitations or boundaries. Mind has experienced both the darkness and the light of energy since the beginning of time. As mind has survived and expanded over eternity, it has surely become co-equal with energy. Trusting in the future and imagining our minds entwining with the eternal mind, let's consider some additional languages of reason that will allow us to measure and count the universe we occupy and everything beyond. Eternity was created by mind along with time to allow stories to have beginnings and endings. I will not be reading the essays in the book of mind and its languages. I will not be reading the essays on measuring, counting, calculating, and formulating, as the numbers in these essays just are difficult to read out loud, but they are actually fairly easy to understand when the text can be more slowly read and considered and studied without any great length, hopefully. Contemplating. Sitting here alone in my study in the quiet early hours of an autumn morning, listening to the crickets outside the window, trying to recapture the images that flowed through the dream that pulled me from my bed and the sight of my wife, I picture our physical universe and struggle for the words to describe what I see. This book opened with the idea that mass is stupid, but as we've learned, its progeny is mind, which is brilliant and enduring. In about 4 billion years, our Milky Way galaxy will merge with Andromeda, our closest galactic neighbor. The two black holes at their cores will become one, but there are such vast differences between their stars that few, if any, will ever actually collide. The only actual sadness will be the breakup of the waves of our lovely Milky Way spiral galaxy as the disorganized elliptical gallery evolves. Even if it survives the galactic union, this warm water garden we call Earth will probably be destroyed after the passage of yet another billion years, when the sun consumes all of its core hydrogen and its helium begins to burn. Sol will balloon into a red giant, expanding out as far as Earth's orbit before collapsing back down into a white dwarf star. It and its residual solar system will orbit about in the merged galaxy every 200 million years or so for a very long time to come. The universe will relentlessly accelerate its expansion. And since it is the universe itself that is being pulled apart, the distances between galaxies will correspondingly increase, and their relative recession will ultimately exceed the speed of light. Someday, everything we presently see will disappear into the cold, dark energy within which all mass lives and dies. In my imagination, I sometimes wonder if perhaps there is only one such star and planet in each galaxy. Out of the multitude, there may be only one warm yellow star near the edge of a spiral galaxy orbited by a warm water planet itself, circled by a large silver moon to drive the tides of its oceans, washing the land and giving rise to life and mind. Even so, There are at least 100 billion and perhaps as many as 2 trillion galaxies in our universe, more than enough to start a conversation. The mind generated by the mass of our universe will, however, endure, along with everything it ever imagined or created. Unimpeded, our mind will live on to observe other universes spark into existence, and to watch, nurture, and love the minds they generate and their creations. It is mind, the observer of the movement, relativity, and probabilities of mass, that creates the dimension of time, the reality of eternity, and the rewards of learning, love, and joy. As we gather together here on Earth, at the dawn of a new millennium, our science and mathematics have provided us with marvelous tools, allowing us to look through space back to the birth of our universe. We've walked on the moon, landed rovers on Mars, and sent voyagers out beyond the edge of our solar system. Machines now permit us to peer inside the molecules, atoms, and particles that compose the elements of our existence, and all we behold. Other devices scan our brains and reveal the physical processes by which we experience life, language, and emotions. Like any powerful tool, artificial intelligence can be dangerous if it is not carefully programmed or if it is used violently. AI can be easily trained to operate the imaginary UN calculator expressed herein, but it could not create it. Only mind has the imagination to leap mathematical barriers and electromagnetic synapses in order to transcend time. Our technology has provided all of this and much more, including a longer and easier life for most of us. It has also handed us the means of our self-destruction. The continued manufacture and deployment of atomic, biological, and chemical weapons cannot help but have a bad ending for the future of our children and the survival of humanity. The difference between positive and negative outcomes lies entirely within our own minds, and it is there that responsibility resides. The choices to be made are ours, and ours alone. The time, however, for decision-making is now upon us, and we can either unite together or we will perish together. There is no escape from this reality, but alternative futures are always available, each depending upon the choices we make right now.